world's highest peaks hold more than snow and stone. They hold secrets. Every year, climbers test themselves against altitude, storms, and sheer terrain, sometimes disappearing without a trace. In these mountains, survival is never guaranteed. Even the best prepared expeditions can vanish, leaving behind only clues, messages, or bodies frozen in place. Some stories offer closure, others leave questions that linger for decades. From the desperate radio calls echoing across Mount Asahi, to the remains found high on Mount Mercedario, to the shadowed alcove of Everest, where an unknown climber's frozen body served as both landmark and mystery, the mountains tell a story that is equal parts tragic and mysterious. Tonight, we dive into 3 stories of climbers who ventured beyond what the world can safely sustain, and the mountains that refused to yield. The ones the mountains kept. July 1984, Mount Asahi, Hokkaido. Rising above the northern horizon, volcanic slopes are streaked with lingering snow, even in midsummer, framed by miles of silver birch and dark conifers. It is here where travelers can vanish without a trace, where distance blurs and sound is swallowed by the wind. That summer, 25-year-old Kenji Iwamura embarked on a solo trip into the mountain range. He was an experienced hiker, familiar with the land, but when he failed to return, search teams were dispatched. For days they combed the area. They found nothing. No trail, no signs of struggle, only the endless wilderness. Kenji Iwamura's disappearance would sadly become one of the countless mysteries lost to the mountains. 5 years later, 2 other hikers became lost in the same region of Mount Asahi. The weather had turned harsh, obscuring paths that had guided travelers for decades. Both went missing after their planned route took them off course. Days later, the 2 hikers were discovered alive, but weak and dehydrated. Their survival was a miracle in itself, but the rescue team wasn't finished. Believing more hikers might still be stranded, helicopters continued to scour the area. Then, something appeared from above. Something unnatural. From the sky, rescuers spotted a massive SOS sign, formed from fallen birch trees. Arranged with uncanny precision, it stretched several meters across, perfectly legible from the air. On the ground, the sign scale was overwhelming, each log weighing between 40 to 70 kilograms. Meticulously placed and weathered, indicating they'd been there for years. Yet, when ground teams reached the site, there was nothing. No footprints, no clothing, no tools, no campfire, nothing to suggest who built it or when. The rescued hikers insisted they hadn't seen or created it. The sign stood apart, silent, ancient, and unsolved. Roughly 190 meters from the SOS sign, searchers uncovered human remains. Bones scattered in the brush, alongside fragments of a backpack and a weathered tape recorder. Identification would later confirm that the remains were those of Kenji Iwamura, the young man who had vanished 5 years earlier. Among his belongings were several audio tapes. Nearby, a second set of remains was found. The bones were determined to belong to a female hiker, but her identity was never confirmed. The proximity of both discoveries deepened the mystery. Had she been with Kenji, or had she vanished separately? Another soul claimed by the mountain. The SOS sign, however, predated all of them. Investigators compared aerial photographs taken before 1984, and the sign was already visible, faint but distinct. Whoever built it had done so long before Kenji's disappearance. A distress call, a survival signal, or something else was never explained. Despite multiple visits by journalists and local authorities, no new evidence emerged. Even years later, the sign remained largely intact, weathered but visible. A monument to something, or someone, long forgotten. In the aftermath, speculation spread across Japan. Some believe the sign was created by hikers in the 1970s, a forgotten rescue attempt, erased by time. Yet no records, and no official explanation ever surfaced to match the construction of the sign. For Kenji Iwamura and the unidentified woman, their stories ended where the forest reclaimed them. For the two hikers rescued years later, survival meant walking away from something far stranger than they could ever explain. Today, the Mount Asahi SOS incident remains unsolved. A message buried beneath birch and snow. A message carved into the earth, meant to be seen, but never understood. What lies beyond the noise may never answer back. High in the Argentine Andes, the air feels thinner, the silence heavier. Mount Mercedario towers above the San Juan province, an ancient ridge of ice and stone, where storms come without warning, and even sound feels frozen in place. In March of 1981, three climbers, Marta Emilia Altamirano, her sister Graciela, and fellow mountaineer Eduardo Espinosa, began their ascent. Their goal was to conquer the towering Mercedario, one of the most isolated peaks in South America. The route that Marta planned to take was known for its harsh, unpredictable conditions. Even experienced climbers described it as demanding. Thin air, sudden snowstorms, and steep glacial slopes made every step a risk. Though not the most extreme path on the mountain, it was still a trail where a single wrong turn or change in weather could mean disaster. For the group, the climb was meant to be brief, a familiar challenge and a familiar range. But as they advanced, the weather turned. Temperatures plummeted. The sky folded in on itself. And somewhere amid that sudden whiteout, the group was torn apart. Espinosa made it down alive, frostbitten and half-conscious. Graciela was rescued soon after, weak but breathing. But Marta, the youngest, had vanished completely. The search began immediately. Dozens combed the slopes for days, tracing footprints that ended in drifts of untouched snow. No rope, no color against the white, no body. Speculation began almost immediately. Some believed Marta had strayed off the ridge, blinded by the blizzard, and slipped into one of the glacier's hidden crevices. Others thought she might have sheltered behind an outcrop, waiting for the storm to pass, only to be trapped as snow sealed the exit. Her last known position suggested she may have turned back on her own, attempting to descend through unfamiliar terrain. Experts proposed that she could have wandered for hours, maybe days, before the cold forced her to stop. And then there was the most haunting theory, that she realized she couldn't escape, that she found a place to sit, knowing she would never leave. After days of searching, the terrain grew merciless. Steep ice faces, shifting snow, and winds strong enough to erase any trace of a person. The search would eventually be called off. Whatever happened in those final hours, the mountain kept her secret. The snow would shift, seasons would turn, and Mercedario remained silent. 42 years later, in 2023, a group of climbers scaling the upper glacier noticed a flash of red beneath the ice. It was a shape, a small, human shape. When they brushed away the frost, they saw a figure seated upright, her clothing intact, hair preserved. It was Marta, frozen. Her body had drifted slowly downhill with the ice, emerging only as the glacier receded. The discovery was both miraculous and tragic. After 42 years, Mercedario had finally exhaled, releasing the climber it had kept hidden in silence. Evidence suggested that she had fallen during her descent, likely injured and unable to continue. The extreme cold did the rest. Her remains, mummified by the mountain's temperature and altitude, had stayed hidden in plain sight for decades. There was no note, no record of her final moments, only the silence of Mercedario, and the reminder that even the most experienced climbers can disappear without a sound. The mountains hold memory in their ice. Every gust, every snowstorm, a page in a story written without words. Marta's remains were a reminder of that, a message from the mountain, returned in perfect stillness. In the end, Marta's story is remembered as a tragic accident in one of the world's most unforgiving mountain ranges. Her body, preserved by the cold, offered closure to a mystery that lasted decades. Though the exact details of her final moments remain uncertain, her discovery shed light on the dangers faced by those who brave the Andes. The northeast side of Everest feels stripped down to its bones. The route cuts across hard ice, broken rock, and long stretches of snow that seemingly blend in with the sky. The path is narrow, pressed between steep drop-offs and jagged cliffs. Up here, it's just you, the cold, and a landscape that doesn't care whether you move forward or turn back. In the spring of 1996, the Indo-Tibetan Border Police expedition arrived on the Tibetan side to attempt the summit. That season in particular was crowded, with multiple expedition teams, all from different countries, on the mountain, each navigating the same narrow ridges and technical sections. Their goal was simple: reach the top. In practice, the mountain dictated every move. The expedition followed the traditional north side acclimatization schedule. Base camp at 5,200 meters served as the hub for supplies, medical checks, and communications. Climbers would then rotate to the interim camp at 5,800 meters, a stop meant to reduce fatigue and adjust to the current weather conditions while crossing the glacier. Advanced Base Camp, or ABC for short, is located at 6,400 meters, functioned as the primary staging area for higher camps and longer acclimatization rotations. From there, the team established their first camp on the North Col at 7,000 meters, their first true high-altitude camp. Camp 2 at 7,500 meters and Camp 3 at 8,300 meters were the final staging points before the summit push, each chosen to minimize exposure while preparing climbers for what is known as the death zone, an altitude where the human body can't survive for long. The air holds only a third of the oxygen found at sea level. Every step burns energy faster than it can be replaced. Judgment deteriorates, and the body slowly begins to shut down. Up here, weather is lethal. Rescue is nearly impossible, and even experienced climbers can collapse without warning. On May 10th, just after midnight, the summit team departed camp at around 8,200 meters for their final ascent. Delays immediately compounded their efforts. Congestion along the route and unfixed rope sections slowed progress, and consumed the limited oxygen supplies critical at that altitude. By mid-afternoon, the climbers radioed base camp, reporting that they had reached the summit. Later analysis suggests they may have been roughly 150 meters short due to poor visibility, but at that altitude, such distinctions were nearly irrelevant. Every step was measured against survival rather than accomplishment. As they began their descent, a blizzard struck. Snow intensified, and winds reached hurricane force, reducing visibility to near zero. On the exposed northeast ridge, the conditions became lethal. The climbers either became separated or immobilized in the storm. One individual in particular reached a shallow limestone alcove along the route. It offered minimal protection, enough to provide just a pause, but nothing more. A hollow in the rock gave him the slightest edge against the storm. It wasn't protection, just the faintest delay against the inevitable. A thin moment of borrowed time. Later on that same month, British climber and filmmaker Matt Dickinson was ascending Everest's north side during the same brutal season that claimed multiple lives. As he and his team moved through the narrow limestone section near 8,500 meters, Dickinson came across the body of that same climber lying in the shallow rock alcove, later known as Green Boots. He filmed the moment almost incidentally, not realizing that his footage would become the earliest known recording of the now iconic landmark. At the time, Dickinson didn't know the climber's identity. He was documenting the harsh reality of the mountain, and his encounter became one of the dark reminders of the 1996 disaster season and the deadly conditions of the North Route. The climber in the alcove, whose identity has never been confirmed, lay frozen, dehydrated, and weathered. Some believe it was Tsiwang Palyor. Others suggest it may have been another member of the team. The uncertainty persists even decades later. What was visible to every climber passing the northeast ridge was the bright green boots. From this detail, the body earned the name that would become familiar to mountaineers. Later on the following day, a few hundred meters farther down the ridge, two Japanese climbers would discover another body, lying beside a lone boulder just steps off the main path. He hadn't reached shelter. He had simply collapsed where the mountain claimed him. The two locations weren't far apart on a map, but up here, distance loses all logic. A tiny change in terrain decides who finds a hollow to crawl into, and who ends up exposed to the storm. When the other climbing team passed him during their summit push, they didn't attempt to rescue. Not because they didn't care, but because up here, no one has the strength to save anyone else. Every climber is surviving by the thinnest margin. Stopping for too long risks becoming another body on the ridge. Still, the decision sparked controversy. From sea level, people wondered why they didn't help. Up here, the answer is simpler and darker. There was nothing they could have done without dying themselves. The severe lack of oxygen in this environment makes standard rescue operations functionally impossible. At that elevation, human physiology sets strict limits, removing recovery from the list of realistic options. Above 8,000 meters, the environment halts decomposition. Freezing temperatures prevent bacterial activity, high winds strip away moisture, and the thin air stops natural decay. Within hours, the human body becomes rigid. Within days, it begins to freeze dry. And over weeks, exposed areas darken while clothing stiffens. Over months and years, the body remains largely unchanged, preserved by the same conditions that ended the climb. The body in the limestone alcove, known as Green Boots, is widely believed to be Tsiwang Palyor, an Indian climber who was part of the Indo-Tibetan Border Police expedition, though his identity has never been officially confirmed. The climber later found lying beside the boulder was speculated to be Dorje Morup, another member of the same expedition. He would survive longer than who many thought was Palyor, but ultimately succumbed to the extreme conditions. Neither could be rescued in the death zone, highlighting the brutal reality of Everest above 8,000 meters. Reports indicate that the body known as Green Boots was relocated or buried around 2014 by authorities overseeing the north side of Everest, likely the China-Tibet Mountaineering Association. Some climbers later reported seeing what appeared to be remains in roughly the same area, partially covered by rocks or snow, while others found nothing at all. The accounts vary, and no official record confirms the body's final resting place. Its disappearance adds another layer to the mountain's enduring mysteries, leaving the identity, the exact fate, and the location of Green Boots uncertain, even decades after the storm that claimed him. Green Boots is not a name. It's not a confirmed story. It is simply a presence on the route, preserved by altitude, weather, and the limits of human physiology. A reminder of the unforgiving reality of the death zone and the consequences of climbing above 8,000 meters. For nearly 2 decades, the figure in Green Boots marked a point of no return on the northeast ridge. His identity remained uncertain, his final moments forever unknown, and in a place where the air erases almost everything, his story became one of the few that refused to fade. Three different mountains, 3 different paths, and 3 stories that ended in silence. Each one shows a different face of the wilderness, its beauty, its indifference, and its cost. We can't know their final thoughts or the last things they saw, but by revisiting their journeys, we honor the pieces of their stories that remain. These stories endure because the mountains do not forget, and through them, neither should we. We remember the climbers who gave everything in pursuit of the peaks, and we honor their courage, their struggles, and the lessons they left behind. May their stories remind us of the human cost of ambition and the respect owed to Mother Nature and to those who never returned. Thank you for watching. This is Echoes of Static, where the noise fades and the stories remain. Farewell, until next time.